Welcome to the ANA Virtual Pre-Application Training, Video 2, Criterion I, the approach, covering the ANA framework. We are the Alaska Region Training and Technical Assistance Center. You can reach us through our website, and our team consists of Larry, Drina, Charles, and myself, Angela. We're here to assist you as you develop your application. Feel free to reach out to us during this process. This is video 2, covering the ANA framework in a 9-video series. We suggest that you watch each of these videos in order. And then if you need a refresher, go back and just watch the video that you're looking for some extra assistance on, or a refresher of the material. The ANA project framework is linked together in such a way that it builds upon itself as you're developing your application. The long-term community goal is the place that everything hinges on. This is where you look at what is the best community we could have. If your community was perfect, what would it look like? And you find these long-term community goals of places that you're trying to get to in places like your community development plans, strategic plans of different organizations, or even the tribe. And again, this is the kumbaya. The reason that you aren't there are that there are several current community conditions standing in the way of reaching that long-term goal. Your application will talk about what is that. The project goal is linked to taking one small step to solving the community condition to reach that long-term community goal. Remember, this is a project. It's small, little thimble size of time and money. So you may not solve this entire community condition. Maybe you're just taking a small step at reducing it in some way. And that's what you're going to address under your project goal. The tip objectives are the accomplishments, the major accomplishments that will lead to reaching the goal, reducing the community condition to obtain your long-term community goal. The outputs, the services and products that will happen as a result of the activities that you will do and conduct in order to achieve your objectives, reach the goal, reduce the condition, and obtain your long-term community goal. The indicator is what is going to change. It is written directly into the objective. T-tip. The I is the indicator. The outcome is those larger parts that you will expect to see within the community that happen because you achieve the objectives, reach the goal, lessen the condition, and you have taken a step towards obtaining your long-term community goal. The long-term community goal, as I mentioned, is the vision of an ideal community or organization. This sub-criteria is worth 2 points. There is only one element to address, and you're going to clearly justify why your project was selected. to address this particular long-term goal. Remember, that goal is found within a strategic plan, community development plan, or something as such. When you go to address this, you want to choose and state the one long-term community goal that aligns with your A&A project. Talk about where that is found and why it relates. Describe why this project is going to bring you one step closer. The other thing that you want to do is you want to bold a statement, call out long-term community goal, and then write your long-term goal directly after that so that it is clearly visible and easily found. The reviewers will know this is the long-term goal you're working towards. An example of this can be found on page 25 of the manual. So as you can see, we have called out the long-term community goal and then written it. Pine Creek tribal members are healthy, vibrant, and self-sufficient. We talk about that the goal was identified by the tribe during a strategic planning, that it's only 2 years old, so you want something that's fairly recent. It was determined by surveys that were sent out to the entire community, and that the survey results showed these particular 8 priorities, and the one we're choosing was number 3 on the list. Then how the tribal council determined that our farmers market co-op is the best department suited to work on this goal, and that what we have done, right, that our department is, they met with the farmers and surveyed the community needs, and through those results it was determined that folks are unable to purchase local fruits and vegetables, and that things are expensive, and that if we introduce new technologies and increase production, we could reduce costs. With this, we have said this is a community-based project, the community was involved, and we get to move forward with achieving this and how it relates to this particular project. There is a long-term community goal activity on page 26. The current community condition is a barrier or a gap that's preventing your community or organization from achieving that long-term goal. This sub-criteria is worth 3 points, and there are 2 elements to address. One of them is that you provide a single statement, and the other is the baseline for that condition. Again, you want to call out the current community condition, bold it, and then write the condition. So for this project that we're using as an example, fresh produce in our community costs 5 times the state average. That's pretty compelling. And it says that this is something that we should address. It's urgent. The statement should be 1 sentence in length. It should contain a measure so that you can show there will be a change, and again, bolded and italicized. Do not include lack of or need for during this while you're writing this. This is about the condition as it exists now. When you begin to write a statement that has lack of or need for, that is typically an indication of the solution that you are seeking to create the project for, not the underlying condition. And this criteria is asking for the underlying condition. The baseline information is about that underlying condition. You're going to describe the source that you got the information from, whether it was a survey, a study, a census. You're going to describe how the data links directly to this one single community condition that you're looking to address. You really want this data to not be more than 5 years, and local data is always better than national data. So for example, in our community condition, we're saying that the food costs to our consumers, it's 5 times what other communities are paying. And initially, remember, we said in our long-term goal explanation that we had done surveys a few years ago with the community who said we can't afford this. So we look at that and then we talk just about that. We conducted a survey in 2018. What the results showed, it showed that our community members would like to purchase more fresh produce, but they can't. We talk about a comparison study that cited that our community pays 5 times the cost, and that the report mentioned 2 reasons for that. There was outdated farming techniques and high rates of spoilage. So in this, we have done 2 things. We have shown local data and we've connected it to our long-term goal. In the language FOAs, there's an additional element under this subcriteria for the current community condition. So you'll notice that if you're looking at the language grants, the numbering will be different than in the SEDS grant. So I've given the number here that is in the language FOA when I'm addressing those criteria. The criteria here is that you'll need to describe the current status of the language within 5 years, a current number of fluent and emergent speakers, and you want to talk about their fluency levels. What are the current language resources that are available? Describe your language programs as they exist today, and what is the level of participation by current and emerging language speakers. And the activities for the current community condition are on pages 29 and 32 in the manual. The project goal subcriteria is worth 3 points, and there are 2 elements to address. That the goal addresses the current community condition, and then how this goal demonstrates that your project is going to relate to the particular funding opportunity that you are applying under. The project goal should be a statement, 1, 2 sentences at most, that describe an improved condition, and they should be identified from the community. Remember, you're moving towards reducing the current community condition and obtaining the long-term goal. So you want to write a statement, you want to call it out, and then write your statement. So this examples project goal is to reduce fresh produce costs to the community by implementing farming innovations. So you're going to write a statement which shows a reduction or improvement to the condition, and then describe how the goal is going to address that condition. And again, you want to talk about how this project was chosen and its relationship to the funding opportunity that you are applying under. So an example is that our project goal relates to two concepts within the SEDS program purpose. The project will address economic development by improving farming techniques, and it's going to address the social development by providing a service to produce fresh produce at a reduced cost. And the activity is on pages 34 and 36. The T-tip objectives. Under this sub-criteria, there are 4 elements to address. Remember that the objectives themselves are the building blocks that need to be achieved to reach that project goal and improve the current community condition. For A&A, you can only have a maximum of 3 objectives for the entire project. So you can have up to a 3-year project, right? 12, 24, or 36 months. If you have a 3-year project, you can only have 3 objectives. You can outline them in different ways. You can have objective 1 that runs all year, objective 2 that maybe starts in year 2 and is only for year 2, and a third objective that also runs all 3 years. You can have an objective that's in year 1, another objective for year 2, another objective for year 3. You could have one objective for all 3 years, and that's it. So it's up to you to determine how many objectives you need and when those objectives will come into play. Let's talk about this T-tip. It stands for Timeline, Target, Indicator, and Population. The timeline is a time by which the objective will be achieved. The target is a measurement for the intended amount of change, which is described in the indicator. The indicator is that measurable sign that something has been done or achieved. And then the population is a specific group the project will focus on. Notice that each of these says a timeline, a target, a indicator, and a population. And that is because each objective should only have one of each of these. We've come up with a Mad Lib to help you write your objectives. Now, they do not have to be in this order, but this Mad Lib will help you to initially develop them. So by when is your timeline, who, the population, will increase or decrease what, that is your indicator, and by how much is the target. Please note, it is very important that the target and the indicator are tied together. And on page 28 of the SEDS FOA, it makes this very clear. Each objective must include an indicator as well as a targeted achievement for the indicator. Let's look at some examples. Here's some language examples. Objective 2, by 24 months, that's the timeline, 25 youth ages 7 to 12, that's our population, will increase their language proficiency, that is the indicator, by 4 proficiency levels. That is our target. One of the things that you need to know about the TTIP objectives for language is that they must include one of the following indicators. They must show an indicator as an increase in language proficiency or fluency, an increased community member use of language resources, an increase in teachers certified, or an increased capacity to implement a language program. Here's a couple of ERE samples. By the end of year 1, a timeline, the Great Rivers Tribe Sanitation Department, that's the population, will increase capacity to regulate community safety and sanitation, that's the indicator, by developing one set of regulations and standards for trash collection service. That's the target. They are going to have one set of regulations and standards. A SEDEK example might read, by the end of 36 months, your timeline, the Alaska Inland Tribe, that's the population, will develop a community-driven comprehensive plan, that's the indicator, with 5 critical sectors. That would be a target. Remember that the objectives need to be TTIP compliant. The timelines need to be 12, 24, or 36 months, or for ME, they can be 48 or up to 60 months. We highly suggest that you call out each of the elements for TTIP as you write your objective and leave it there so that the reviewer can clearly see what these elements are in your application and how you are seeing them. There will be no guesswork on the part of the reviewer this way. So for the example we've been working through, by the end of 36 months, the timeline, the tribal nonprofit farmers market, the population, will reduce the cost on a selection of 6 vegetables and 3 fruits, the indicator, by 40%. When you're addressing these various elements, one of them is to clearly define what change is going to take place. So, in the element itself, we state that there's going to be a reduction of cost on a selection of 6 fruits and vegetables by 40%. We are going to then give a brief narrative description of what that means. Objective 1 has a measurable achievement of reducing the cost on 6 vegetables and 3 fruits by 40%. The current cost of these items have been obtained, and once the objective has been achieved, the cost of these same items will be presented to show the measurable reduction in cost. So we're going to tell them what change is going to take place within this time frame. Another element is that you will need to describe the relationship between the objective's achievement, the anticipated change it will bring to the current condition. Now, I've color-coded these so that as you read the example, you can see how it relates to this relationship and give you an idea of how you'll write and address this. So based on our survey results, lower income families are purchasing higher amounts of processed foods due to the high cost of fruits and vegetables. So achieving the objective of reducing the cost of fruits and vegetables by 40% should assist lower income families to produce more produce, thereby preparing healthier meals. Our anticipated change. And this will bring an improvement in the community condition twofold. One, it's going to lower the cost, and two, it's going to increase the availability of fresh produce needed to prepare healthier meals. So as you can see, we broke down each piece of this and addressed it in our narrative. The same thing holds here, except that now we're going to describe the relationship between the objective's achievement and reaching the project goal. So again, that fresh produce having lower costs and an increased volume to the market will allow the farmers market to pass the savings on to our community members. Thereby, that's the goal. There are various participant activities on page 39, 41, 43, and 44 to assist as you walk through developing your objectives. The outputs. This sub-criterion is worth 4 points and has 2 elements. Remember that the outputs are products or services that are directly tied to the accomplishment of your activities in the objective work plan. These outputs will need to be tracked during project implementation. So think about that as you're putting these outputs in. How are you going to track them? Because that is also going to be something that you will need to address in your objective work plan. We suggest that you develop your objective work plan and then come back to write this section of the narrative for your application. In addressing elements 10 and 11, you'll want to list each output from the objective work plan. Describe why it's significant for achieving the objective, as well as why the time frame is appropriate for realizing this output. We developed this small table and suggest using it as you develop and write this part of your narrative. So for example, by the end of 36 months, the Triber's nonprofit, there's our objective. So you want to list that objective so that everybody has a clear understanding of what that is. And then you're going to list all of your outputs. And we just use a couple of examples here. So one of our outputs is to develop 4 MOUs. Why is it significant? The farmers are agreeing to work with the co-op during the project period. And the time frame, these 4 MOUs need to be fully written and signed within the first few months of the project. Then we have these other outputs of the greenhouses, the systems, and the other things. And we are saying that these are the new innovations that will show the increase in production, which allows us to give reduced costs to the consumer. That is their significance to this objective and the project. And the time frame is that each of these will be installed in year 1 and then implemented in years 2 and 3. Again, there's this activity on page 47 to help you walk through the development of this section. The outcomes and indicators subcriteria is worth up to 6 points. The outcome is the expected change within the community or your organization that is a result of completing the objective. ANA requires one primary outcome per objective. Each outcome is measured through a viable indicator, and remember that that indicator is written in the objective itself. And there are 3 elements to address under this subcriteria. You will be describing the expected change, how the outcome aligns to the corresponding objective, and the viable indicators and what will be changed. So to address these 3 elements, we suggest that you follow these 5 steps. First, state your project goal. Then state the outcome for each objective. State the indicator and its associated target from the objective. Then go on to describe how the indicator in the objective will lead to that outcome and how the outcome will result in accomplishing the goal. And you'll want to do that in paragraph form. So here again, we have color-coded this from the previous slide to help you work through that. Based on the results from the community survey, folks say they want to buy more fresh produce if it was affordable, or that they would buy more if it was affordable. The project goal is to reduce the produce cost to the community. So by reaching objective 1, the cost to the consumer would be reduced by 40% on those selected items. Therefore, by completing this objective, the expected outcome of increasing the availability of affordable produce to the community would be reached. Under this subcriteria of outcomes and indicators, there is an additional element to address. You'll need to state the objective and specify which category the primary outcome aligns with. And you'll need to do this for each objective. So remember, previously, we said that you needed to have at least one of these as an indicator. In our example, we have language fluency levels as the indicator. So we will write what the objective is and then talk about the category it's going to address. The categories are the indicators. So we can say that the outcome is aligned with category 1. Our outcome is that the immersion language nest students will have improved fluency in their language. There are activities on page 52 to assist you as you develop this outcomes and indicators section. Again, you can request technical assistance by going to our website, selecting the link, uploading your documents, and telling us who you are and how we can assist you. This technical assistance is for when you've reached about 75% development of your application. In the meantime, please feel free to call us or email us, And you'll find our team's information and all of our contact information on our website as well.